Hi everybody, welcome back to my page. I don't know how many times I did this message, y'all, but I just feel like it just wasn't doing justice because I feel like every time I do it, God is giving me like new revelation. So I wanted to do the second part of the endurance word that I gave for pain to glory, and it's about 2 Exodus chapter 2 to 3, and it's about the coming of Moses, basically being born and being drawn into his purpose. We have 3 major points as far as Moses being born. His name means he was drawn out the water, which God has been giving me like the similarity of his name meaning purpose, as far as like he was so drawn to things that would need his correction or his leadership. And I just want to read what I wrote off. So it says, the helper was born around the chaos. The purpose brought him to the problems, but not as someone who is discord or someone who is like causing the issues, but more so drawn to solving problems and leadership, right? Moses' name meant that he was becoming a leader to help those of his generation that was oppressed by the enemy, which he was in the household of the Pharaoh who caused the oppression on his people. And Pharaoh's daughter is the one who took Moses in as her son. So he was basically Hebrew and Egyptian, basically. He known more about the Egyptians more than about his own lineage, which his people, who were the Israelites, were very fruitful. These were blessed children of God, but he only known so much about it, okay? And I'll put the scriptures inside so you guys can have that confirmation. But it brings us to when Moses became an adult. He basically saw one of his Hebrew brothers. Well, let's just start it off by the chapter. Let me go to it, y'all, so we can get some Bible basics from the chapter. Okay, let's see. Exodus chapter 2, verse 11 says, now in those days later, Moses had become an adult. He went out to his brothers to look at the burdens they were bearing, and he caught sight of an Egypt beating a Hebrew one of his brothers. So he looked this way and that, and seeing no one, he killed the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. Once again, he was drawn to a situation where he was either right or wrong in Moses' eyes, where he felt like, okay, he's abusing this worker. He saw the oppression in his brother as far as getting beat from, an Egyptian. And I want you to understand the word burden. So burden in the Bible means their responsibility. So he caught sight of this Egyptian while he was basically going out there to look at and see what his brothers do. Like, what do? They was looking over the cheap enforcers who was abusing the Hebrew people, and he didn't like it. And the crazy part is, when we watch these movies, they don't give us justice of the word, because Moses knew in that moment what he was doing. See, it wasn't just that he had a temper or anything like that. Moses pretty much was like, okay, this is wrong, I'm gonna kill him. Like, he very much knew well what he was doing, y'all. Okay, let's see. Another thing that caught my eyes was how they said the following day. So it says he went out the following day. This is verse 13 of chapter 2 of Exodus. But he went out on the following day, and there were 2 Hebrew men fighting with each other. So he said to he said to the one in the wrong, why do you strike your companion? And we know this means, fellow kinship, brother, whoever you want to call it, friend, whatever. It says, at this he said, who appointed you a prince and a judge over us? Are you planning to kill us just as you did the Egyptian? And Moses now was afraid and said, surely the matters has become known. He was more so shocked that somebody saw him. What got me on that verse was, he just saved the Hebrew, and now you got Hebrews hating on him anyway. And then when you read more details into Exodus chapter, the beginning of chapter 2 or in the middle of chapter 1 going into, it shows that when Pharaoh daughter had received Moses in a basket, and Moses' sister came to her, she offered to pay the Hebrew mother, which was his actual mother, money to watch over Moses. So their family was literally blessed. And if you look at it, Moses was like that generation that was like his whole generation from when Moses was born was cut off. All the men were cut off, okay, because they killed them. They threw them in the river. So he's like the last of his generation in that time. So you can see why he is so blessed, and purpose is just following him. Because remind you, that same day he just came back out. Here's another problem that's drawn to him, that he butted in as a leader to ask the one who was in the wrong, why would you strike your companion? Like, what's wrong with y'all, basically? And they basically bring up what they know that he just did, and it scared him. So sometimes fear will run us to destiny, because in this moment, I guess if you compare that to life, because I feel like the example God was giving me is like things that we don't understand, that would like, we will go off the road, and God has a certain pathway for us, but because God know these things, he use it to bring us to where we supposed to be. It's just not like that to us, okay? We just think like, oh God, I went off, but it's like God wrote the book. You know, he knows the beginning from the end. So even when we feel lost, even when we feel like we're... Sorry, y'all. It's so crazy. I knew why I had to do this word again, because I feel like God is just working in my own life right now of things that been so much as a burden to me. And it's like God is using Moses as a helper for other people, but it's like Moses needed help himself. And his fear ran him off, like most of our fear does. It runs us off. But as he runs off, he runs into another family who is willing to take him in. But before he's taken in, he's drawn to a well. And it just reminds me of God. It's like these problems that we run from when we feel some type of way, when we're feeling lonely, when we're feeling lost, when we feel like we have nobody, and you're going through so much, and you're just looking for help. He just knows how to draw you to his living water, like he did the lady at the well, right? He met her there. When she came, he was already there waiting for her. See, help was waiting for Moses. So as he went to this well, he see the 7 daughters of Jethro, who was a priest of Midian. Media is spelled M-I-D. I'll put it up, I-A-N. Okay, and he was a priest. And he wound up helping his 7 daughters. Now, he didn't know that every time that the daughters come and they try to feed the sheep, feed them water and, get drinking water for themselves in the household, there's these shepherd guys, and they come and they bully them, and they basically make them wait, and they're women, so they get home late, and, it's just all women, and they've been doing this for a minute. Moses wound up being in place to stop that, okay? So here goes the helper again, who needs help, helping someone else. And a lot of us find our place in life where we are just doing so much helping to other people, but it's just a moment that you say, God, I need help. Why am I not getting help? And it's like God sees, he notices, he knows what we need, he knows what we're going through. And as Moses begins to help them, the women are grateful, they're happy, they get home early, they go to the father, and the father like, hey, you guys are here earlier, like what different happened today, not stressing about, because it don't say how old the pop is, but I'm thinking like if he doesn't go with them or have anybody to go with them, then that could mean so much more. But that's like another word for like a different time. But it was like the father, I felt like he needed a man in the house. He got all them daughters and he don't have no men, so it's like the women are picking up the men's job. You understand? That's like a whole nother story. So this is like a whole bunch of women who do this every day, and there's nobody to watch over them. So as the father began to question them, this is what the young ladies begin to tell the father. Okay, hold on, y'all. So they replied, a certain Egyptian rescued us from the shepherds, and he even drew water for us in the water and watered the flock. He said to the daughters, but where is he? Why did you leave the man behind? Call him so they may eat with us. Do you see how not only was Moses a help to the women, but he helped the father? And the father saw something in that. Like, if he was willing to help y'all, and this day he was able to save y'all from these bullies that constantly do this to y'all every day. I want to meet this man. So in the midst of like us helping other people, knowing that we're going through, God always has this plan. And as they begin to invite Moses back to their camp, long story short, it says that he wound up getting married to Zipporah, which was Jethro's daughter, and he had a son. So he wound up staying there after that first meeting, being annihilated. Is it annihilated when you get like thrown out your camp and they want to kill you type of thing? It was like he went from being saved out the water, from his whole generation being annihilated again, to being in the Pharaoh's house as a prince, but again being annihilated because now you done murdered somebody and they after your life and you're a castaway. Now you're into someone else's house and God decides to bless you with a family. He decides to bless you. But one thing that they said in here was, after Moses received, his wife, his husband, God, put some love in there somewhere, let him know he got purpose, some time went by. And this caught my eyes too, because I was like, wow, God was restoring a family in him. But you know how even after that, it was like it was still a purpose. He still had a purpose. So it was still something in him that was like, okay, I got to do something else. I'm called to do something else. I have my family, but I have to do something else. And it says, Moses became, this is chapter 3 now of Exodus. It says, Moses became a shepherd of the flock of his father-in-law Jethro, the priest of Midian. And while he was leading the flock to the west side of the wilderness, he eventually came to the mountain of the true God. Isn't it crazy how in every Bible story, I can't say every, but most, that God has a thing for shepherds? Because they watch over a group, and not only that, they make sure they're protected, they make sure they're fed, they make sure they're going the right direction, that none of them gets lost. And it was like the minute that he received himself as being a shepherd, because it says now that, let's get the direction, it says Moses became a shepherd. So it was like that was a new level for him. So he's just getting his experience. He's getting his levels up, okay, where he is. And he comes to a place where verse 2 of chapter 3 says, then Jehovah, an angel, appeared to him in a flame of fire in the midst of a thorn bush. As he kept looking, he saw the thorn bush was on fire, and yet the thorn bush was not consumed. So Moses said, I will go over to inspect this unusual sight to see why the thorn bush does not burn up. And when Jehovah saw that he went over to look, God called to him out of the thorn bush and said, Moses, Moses, to which he said, Here I am. I think it's so funny that God says, when Jehovah saw that, he went over to look. When God sees that we are curious or have some questions, or I think it's just like somehow it's some type of invitation that we give to God when we're at the end of ourselves, when we are looking for help, some way that we invite God. It don't matter if it's just a little tadpole, a little pit. I feel like God can use that. And the fact that he gave him something that was unusual, because remember, Moses lived in a house full of like lowercase g gods. So they did all types of magician and miracle, little miracle stuff. And he never seen the burning bush burn without being consumed. Because I'm sure they used fire tricks in there too. So God used something that was unusual. So maybe this is how I look at the Bible. Maybe there's something unusual coming for us that God wants us to pay attention to. It's a lot of notes that I've been getting that God talks about discernment, having wisdom between good and evil. That has been like the verse for like a couple of years now. I've been seeing to be like very concerning of good and evil. So being able to have discernment when God is talking to you, when God is trying to show you something. Excuse me, y'all. So, and another thing that got me was when Moses, the first thing he said is, Here I am. I even think that's a word of like committing to God. Like, here I am. Like, you have my full attention. So Jesus got his full attention. And I think that's something else that God is asking for. Now it was like Moses was looking for a helper after he was being the help in certain areas. He wound up getting help. Now God is like, now that I got you help, I need you to help. I need you to be the leader that I called you to be. So Jehovah starts revealing himself, and he starts to give him instructions, and he begins to tell him how he remember his people, how his people are still, well, forget about what I'm talking about. Let's continue to read, right? Chapter 3, verse 5, it says, Then he said, Do not come any nearer. Remove your sandals for your feet, because the place where you are standing is holy ground. He went on to say, I am God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Then Moses hid his face because he was afraid to look at the true God. So God revealed himself, and Moses knew that he was the one and only true God, okay? That when God decides to do that is because we have his full attention, right? He begins to reveal himself. And it says, Jehovah added, I have certainly seen the affliction of my people who are in Egypt. So it was like he allowed Moses to get himself together. But now he's like, okay, now that you received your help and you have strength, you have your family, I need you to look into your people that are crying out to me, because I have heard their outcry. Right? So he goes into verse 8 saying, I will go down to rescue them out of the hands of the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of the land, to a land good and spacious, a land flowing with milk and honey, the territory of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Ordonites. Listen to a whole bunch of them, y'all. Jebusites, all of them, all the ites. Now look, the outcry of the people of Israel has reached me, and I have seen also the harsh way that the Egyptians are now oppressing them. Now come, I will send you to Pharaoh, and you will bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. However, Moses said to the true God, Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? And sometimes that's how we are to God. Like he asks us to do a task. Sometimes it seems hard to us. Sometimes our disabilities over, doing what God asks us to do, sometimes take over our mind. And God is like, verse 12, I will prove to be with you And this is the sign for you that it was I who sent you. After you have brought the people out of Egypt, you will serve the true God on this mountain. But Moses said to the true God, Suppose I go to the Israelites and they say to them, the God of your forefathers has sent me to you. And they say to me, what is his name? What should I say to them? So God said to Moses, I will become what I choose to become, which he said, I am who I am. But I'm reading a different version, okay, y'all? And he added, this is what you are to say to the Israelites. I will become has sent me to you. Then God said once more to Moses, this is what you are to say to the Israelites. Jehovah, the God of your forefathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob has sent me to you. This is the name forever. And this is how I am to be remembered from generation to generation. And let me tell you how that is so important to God, for us to be able to, when God takes us through things, when we go through stuff, we call it our testimony. God wants us to let people know about our testimony so that his name will live on and people will begin to trust him because they saw him in our lives. Verse 16 says, now go and gather the elders of Israel and say to them, Jehovah, the God of your forefathers, has appeared to me, the God of Abraham, the God of Jacob. And he said, I have certainly taken notice of and what is being done to you in Egypt. So I say, I will take away you from your affliction at the hands of the Egyptians to the land of the Canaanites. He go with the nights again, y'all. Into a land flowing with milk and honey. And verse 18 of chapter 3 says, they will certainly listen to your voice. And you will go, and you and the elders of Israel, to the king of Egypt. And you men should say to him, Jehovah, the God of the Hebrews, has communicated with us. So please let us make a 3-day journey into the wilderness so that we may sacrifice to Jehovah our God. But I myself will know the king of Egypt will not give you permission to go unless a mighty hand compels him. So I will have to stretch out my hand and strike Egyptians. And I think that's how the Lord does these miraculous testimonies with us. See, in our eyes, it look like something that we can't accomplish because it's not meant for us in ourselves to think that we can do something that only God can get the glory out of. So sometimes some of our testimonies, some of the things that we go through are way beyond us because God wants the glory. See, God don't want it to seem like men can do this for you, because then what glory is that to God? God wants to do it. So God writes a good story. I don't know about y'all, but I love a good little movie, you know. God is the best author. Chapter 3, verse 20 of Exodus says, so I will have to stretch out my hand and strike Egyptians with the extraordinary act that I will do in it. And after that, he will send you out, and I will give the people favor in the eyes of the Egyptians. And when you go, you by no means will go empty-handed. Each woman must ask her neighbor and the women logging in her house for articles of silver and gold, as well as clothing. And you will put them on the sons and your daughters, and you will plunder the Egyptians. Do you understand how he said when you say your goodbye, God is not going to let you go empty-handed. You're going to get everything back that was ever stolen from you, ever taken from you. And a lot of people, that could be love, that could be respect, that could be your peace, that could be your finances, that could be your household, that could be the land, that could be your children. It's so many things that comes with that where God gives back. I'm sure we hear the term 1,000-fold, 4-fold, like, I'm so thirsty, y'all. Sorry. But it's like, God will do those things when he wants his glory out of us. And yes, we do have to suffer as Christians. I think we want all these big blessings, and we want the blessing that David had. We want the blessing that Job had. We want the blessing that Moses had, but we don't want to go through the long suffering like they did. In order for character and strength to be built, you got to endure some weights. You got to You got to be in the gym for some time to lose some weight. You want to build muscle, you got to do certain things to build muscle, and it got to be a routine that's done every day. It's the same thing that God wants us to live a correct life for him. It's going to take some sacrifices. It's going to take some removal of things. It's going to take some enduring of trials and tribulations. It's going to take the removal of friends, family, jobs, places, things that he has to remove from us in order for us to be free. But a lot of people don't stay that long. It's like the minute they go through hell, they don't want to do it anymore. And they turn their backs on God. And this is why most of us, we go through long suffering. Because sometimes I feel like the devil just be going to Jesus and just saying to him, let me do this. They ain't going to stay that long. You're going to bless them and they're going to walk away from you. And God just be like, he be looking at us like, but I trust them. And then we go and we get in these things. And God is so graceful because I am a victim that I overcome that, because it was times that I just was like, I felt like the Lord was trusting me to make better decisions or to say things that I'm like, man, I was out here making vows and oaths to God and not keeping them at all, like God. And I got to a point to where now I wasn't cursing him if stuff didn't come out right, because now I started understanding, okay, the devil going to try to, do that. So he used a lot of people in my life to hurt me, to make my heart cold. One minute he would send somebody that was like loving me, cool, and then he would just take it back. And the way he would do it would be so painful, y'all. My love life has been a wreck. I'm not going to sit up here and lie and say my heart has been broken my whole life through people I have trust, through loyalty that I have gave myself to, my body to, just a whole sacrifice. And just sacrificing myself for people who totally behind my back just disrespected me, had no respect for me at all. And I'm thinking these people loving me and they don't even like me. It breaks my heart. And I had to come out of that, because that was my exodus. It's like, if I'm not for you, I'm not for you. I'm not begging nobody no more to love me. I'm not doing any of that no more. I told God I am all his, and whenever he decides to give someone to me, then that's what he's going to do. But my warning to y'all, even with this word, is allow God to help you. Allow to whatever has happened in your life, even at this very moment, if it was a bad turn, a wrong decision, allow God to use that to build character, to transform you. The thing is, you got to do what Moses did when he saw that bush. He looked at it. He invested. He had discernment about what season he was in. He kept his eyes on God after that, and he spoke. He had a deep conversation about who he was and what you want me to say and what you want me to do. He was very in tune in God's plan. And I believe whoever's listening to this word, that's the season. I believe whenever God decides to put this word in whoever's ear, or whoever, feed time, that God is saying, this is the time that I need you to be focused with me, because I got something for you, but I need you to help some other people. So we are called to be helpers. And in this season, God says, I know that the help needs help. So allow him to help you. That is the word today. I love you guys, but love God more. Keep him first. Keep your eyes on him. Look at what he's trying to show you. And just know that your pain is going to equal to glory. Just go through the endurance. I love y'all. Bye.